everyone, and welcome to this brand new intro for this re-release of one of our favorite Christmas classics. Steve, this is one that we so enjoyed talking about and revisiting, a film that still holds up and is still a part of my rotation today.
I think it is truly, truly a modern Christmas classic that blends sort of a modern sensibility with the classic spirit of Christmas, and that, of course, is Elf.
Yeah, the Will Farrell star here, directed by Jon Favreau, who, of course, went on to MCU fame and Star Wars fame. Who knew that man would be breaking out in such incredible ways there under the Disney banner? But this one's still one of my favorites. And Steve, we're doing these intros as a thank you to all of our Cine-Files patrons and all of our Cine-Files fans and listeners for supporting the show, whether you do it with the Patreon or you do it just by listening or retweeting or reposting or liking, anything you do to support the show. We appreciate it madly, and this is our thank you for it.
So eat some sweets, line up, get ready to sit on Santa's lap as you enjoy the Cine-Files exploration of the comedy Christmas classic, Elf.
Your costume is pretty.
Oh, it's not a costume. I'm an elf. Well, technically I'm a human, but I was raised by elves.
Oh, I'm a human, raised by humans.
Hello and welcome once again to the Cine-Files, where each week we enter the world of a great film. We explore the themes, the history, the filmmaking, and the influence it has on us today. My name is Steve Morris. I am a filmmaker and directing instructor in Los Angeles, California.
Merry Christmas, everybody. This is John Roca. I'm a writer, producer, and host over there on the Outlaw Nation, co-host of this show, and voiceover guy, and massive fan of this movie, Steve. I'm glad that we are doing it.
Well, and this, we every year as it's getting closer to holidays, we have the little debate of what should we do? Mm-hmm. Should it be an old black and white classic? Should be a cynical new Hollywood movie? And this year we settled on the warm, fuzzy feelings of Elf.
Elf, yeah, which is a modern Christmas classic. So many people revere it. And as we're recording this, they just did a benefit reading of it with Will Farrell coming back and some of the cast members, a stage reading of it over Zoom. And our friend Sarah Copperthwaite got a chance to be a part of it and watch it and was sending me multiple clips and pictures of it. So it was great to see that some of the stuff still holds up. It's still fun. Even if it's not in the film, the material still works.
That's awesome. I hadn't heard about that at all. That's really cool. Do you remember how you first came to Elf?
Oh, yeah. I think it was with the crew. I think we all were excited about the trailer. This is Will Farrell coming out of SNL. This was kind of his first lead role film. I think he'd been in other films. And so we were all excited from the trailer. We were kind of hesitant. And there's such a big strain of Christmas loving in our group of friends. or loving Christmas. And so we set this up to go and see it. I remember all of us, it's Sarah and Vogel and a bunch of other people. I think we were all just loving the movie from top to bottom.
I was trying to remember. So this is 2003. It's possible I went with you. You were in LA then, right?
Yeah, definitely.
I did see it in the theater, but I can't remember exactly the circumstances. Here's what's weird about this movie. As you say, our group of friends has all these Christmas traditions.
Yeah.
And one of them is our annual party, which we aren't having this year, obviously, called Faux Christmas, which was, I think you guys started it when you were still in Florida State, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So my experience with Elf, I saw it in the theater.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever watched the whole thing since then, except that every year at that faux Christmas party, along with Christmas Vacation, Elf is one of the movies that's always playing.
Yep.
And so I would walk into the room and grab a cookie and watch a scene, and then I would walk out, and then I would come back in, and I'd go, I love this scene. I'd sit down for 10 minutes, and then I would go out. And so I'd see it every year. I would see parts of it, but I don't think I had watched it beginning to end until 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Since 2003. I mean, I'd seen it back then.
Yeah.
So it's so funny. There's scenes that I was 100% had memorized and scenes I had very little memory of.
Oh, I see that. I watch this one all the time, every year, at least once. It's just one of those ones that makes you feel good. And so, that's so interesting to hear that you haven't heard it or watched it in a while, front to back. So interesting.
Well, I mean, it's like the old days of, switching channels and popping in on a movie and never seeing the beginning,
Yeah.
There were so many movies like that. And now, I know you still do that, but now I'm, if I'm going to watch a movie, I am streaming it or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's just a discussion that came in, not to divert, but real quick, there's a discussion I've had with some of my Outlaw Nation people on Q&A. Is like, are the days of non-purposeful viewing over? Are the days of random viewing over? Because with the end, or people cutting cords and people just getting streaming services, you are going into the streaming service for a specific reason to watch a specific movie, as opposed to wandering around and just having the cable company choose or the channel choose for you something that it happens to be playing and you stumble upon it and enjoy watching it. Maybe those days of non-purposeful viewing are coming to an end.
I think it is largely, because for my kids, for younger generations, they never did that.
Yeah.
They never switched channels.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because it's one of these weird ways where getting exactly what you want might not be so good for you.
Yeah.
Because you're always going to seek out the familiar, you're going to seek out the thing you like.
Right.
Whereas you and I, because there were only so many channels, it's like, this is what was on. So you watched an old black and white movie, or you watched an old TV show because you were forced to, and some of it was terrible, but some of it opened up your mind to new things.
Yeah, agreed.
Tiny bit of pre-production. So the script was written by David Berenbaum. He wrote it back in 1986.
Wow.
And it went into what we call development hell, which is it bounced around and there's a moment where people are interested and then it kind of dies and then it bounced around again. Sounds like the closest they came was in 93. And I can't tell if Jim Carrey was officially attached, but they were in talks with Jim Carrey, and that's peak Jim Carrey in 93.
Yeah.
But obviously that fell through. It sounds like the original idea was much, much darker. It was a much more cynical version of this. Tom Carmanicki came on as the producer, and that's when Will Farrell got attached. And this is just when he's coming up, because Zoolander is 2001. Old School also comes out in 2003, just before this.
Yeah.
And Anchorman is the next year. Anchorman is 2004. And they bring in, here's what I couldn't figure out. Because so Jon Favreau definitely came in to do rewrites.
Yes.
And what I couldn't figure out is, did he come in to do rewrites as the director? Or did they hire him as a writer to to punch up the script? And then later he became the director.
That's how I heard it. That then doing some research, because I, doing my aborted 25 Days of Christmas. One of the films we covered was Elf, and I doing some research for it. I found that yes, you're right, Steve. The script was darker, and that's when they had Terry Zwigoff attached to it, who ended up doing Bad Santa, the Billy Bob Thornton movie, instead. But I think when Carrey was attached, that's what they were looking at. When Will Farrell came on to the thing, I think Favreau was a writer at that point doing punch-ups. When Will Farrell came on, then the possibility of Favreau became something they entertained. And Favreau didn't want to do it initially, and then eventually they talked him into taking it. I think he had turned it down like a couple of times, because remember, this isn't, Favreau wasn't directing movies left and right. He was still kind of walking into it. So
well, and he was an indie guy who had done Swingers and done a couple of small films, and this is before Iron Man, and certainly, we think about him now with Mandalorian, like.
Yeah.
He is hugely powerful.
Yeah.
Lion King is one of the, it's not a particularly good movie, but one of the most successful Disney animated films of the last many years. And it sounds like his way in was when he suddenly went, oh, it could be an homage to all those Christmas shows we grew up with, all the Rankin and Bass, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Santa Claus is Coming to Town, all those stop motion things. And once that clicked for him, it sounds like the spirit of the movie really came into focus.
That makes sense, because so many of those moments are so great when we get to them in the movie.
Well, and it's also, it sounds like the cynicism, they were making fun of Christmas. That was sort of the way it was before. And what this movie is, while the humor is all there, it's never making fun of it. It's all sincere.
Yeah.
And the direction the movie goes is to embrace all of that, even though it had made fun of some of it.
Yeah.
By the way, there were many writers who came on, including Adam McKay came on because he was partners with Will Farrell. So he did passes. The guys that wrote Starsky and Hutch did a joke pass on it. And that's something, There are a lot of hands in studio movies, and particularly this idea of someone comes in and does a dialogue pass, and then an actor gets attached, and they go, well, I want my character to be a little more like that. So someone comes in and does a character pass. And then the studio looks and goes, well, this isn't funny enough, or it's an action movie. We don't have good enough action sequences. So they bring in another writer to do that. That happens a lot. And then what happens is the WGA, the Writers Guild, they'll go and look at it and decide, well, who wrote the most, and that's who gets credit.
Yeah.
It's a really weird system. Would you like to take a journey to the North Pole and get into Elf?
Let's do it, man.
It starts with that storybook music, and a book opens, and there is Bob Newhart.
Oh, hello. You're probably here about the story.
That is inspired casting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just the moment he opens his mouth, you get the tone of this movie.
And it's surprising because Steve, you and I are from that time where we've seen the Newhart both series, and he is a dry wit, at times sarcastic, subtly sarcastic at times, sometimes overtly kind of guy. So to have him be this, and he does play the same character, like he plays this character.
He's Bob Newhart,
yeah, he's Bob Newhart, but he's also very vulnerable. He's very sweet. This is not something we're used to seeing from Bob Newhart, who's commenting on everyone else's stuff in both of his series. And so to see him be somebody who Bob Newhart in his other series would probably make fun of was a nice change of pace.
It's really funny. And he tells the story, and it starts off with...
There are only 3 jobs available to an elf.
One job is to help shoemakers, cobblers in the middle of the night, and we cut to the elves doing that. And the other job, of course, is to bake cookies. And we cut to essentially the Keebler elf tree, which is on fire. It's like, but having ovens and dry trees isn't always the best idea. By the way they did the Keebler, there's a lot of really clever and old school special effects. Most of the things you see are all done in camera, including this. And the way they did it is there's a tree way in the background, and that's where the elves are. And then the top of the tree that's on fire, that is way in the foreground. It's right in front of the camera, and it's really small. And do you know where the last place that I can think of that we heard someone doing this kind of special effect, where there's a small miniature way in the foreground and then the characters way in the background?
I can't think of it.
It's Modern Times when Charlie Chaplin does the roller skating.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, and because it's like that's the technology they had. And the genius of being able to have those two images fit together perfectly is amazing to me.
Yeah.
The 3rd job, some call it the show or the big dance. It's the profession that every elf aspires to, and that is to build toys in Santa's workshop.
And then he says no human being had ever set foot in Santa's workshop. You know what that line made me think?
What's that?
Wait, isn't Santa human?
Oh, very good point.
Although there is some, like they call him a jolly old elf in some, but he's clearly human size and does not have pointed ears in this film.
That's true.
But also immortal, so
yeah,
I don't know.
He's been around a while.
I guess we don't have to dig too deep in this film. It's not that important.
That is until about 30 years ago, and as you may have guessed, that's where our story begins.
And then we go into lovely old-fashioned stop-motion animation titles.
Dun, 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 dun. It's great score.
And then we cut to the origin story. We're in like an orphanage, and there's a nun with a baby who gently puts it down in the crib, and it's obviously Christmas Eve, and then Santa comes down the chimney and shows up. Santa goes to eat the milk and cookies, and he sees the baby in the crib, gets the cookies, turns around, baby not in the crib. We see that the kid is seen like a bear, and Santa's bag crawls towards it. And then we get a hard cut.
We've had another very successful year. So, after all that hard work, it's time to start preparations for next Christmas.
This is the first shot we see of this. The way they did all the size, I just assumed the size change was compositing 2 images. So they film Santa, and then they film the elves, and then they stick them together. That is not how this was done. It's all in camera.
Wow.
It's all forced perspective. So what you're seeing is when you see big people and smaller people, they have two sets that are built together. One set where the set is really big, and that's for the elves, so they look small, and an exact duplicate to scale that's really small, and that's where the humans are, so they look big. And that the elves are always 10 feet farther away from the camera.
Okay.
So because of the lensing, the elves end up looking much smaller. And so when they turn to look at each other, they're not looking at each other. They're looking at a piece of tape because the person they're looking at is 10 feet behind them or 10 feet in front of them. And it's all done in camera like that. And it is so amazing because you have to think about all the math. Because they decided, okay, the difference is 150%. So a human is 1.5 times the size of an elf. So therefore, every prop, every piece of set, everything has to be exactly figured out. And the distance to the camera and the lensing has to be exactly precise to keep this illusion working the whole time. Yeah. And the scene between these two shots has to be completely hidden so you never notice it. It's crazy.
Incredible.
It really is. And I'll explain to how they did some of these as we go along because it's really neat. So we have Ed Asner, who's Santa. I love Ed Asner.
Yeah. I mean, he's still alive, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
And I think he was on The Reading, for God's sakes. Still kicking around, that Lou Grant. And God love him, man. He's always great when he shows up.
Well, and done stuff since the 50s.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, he was in Up. He's the voice in Up.
Yeah.
He's so great.
And he is an interesting, fun, cool person. I adore him. And just as we're celebrating, something moves in that bag, that Santa bag, and out comes the baby.
Fortunately, when it comes to babies, Santa's a pushover. So Buddy stayed with an older elf who had always wanted a child, but had been so committed to building toys, he had forgotten to settle down.
We cut to Bob Newhart.
And a great look on his face, just a very kind of really hopeful and moving look on his face, which is great.
It's so funny that you could take his kind of dry, sarcastic detachedness that is his whole career and just turn it a little bit and make it really sweet.
Yeah, because it's self-deprecating. When he turns it that little bit to make it self-deprecating, it becomes sweet. In his other series, he was very much making fun of everyone else in the series with him. This one, he self-deprecates, so it makes it very sweet, yeah.
Though Buddy grew twice as fast, he wasn't any different from the other children.
We cut to a shot of a giant kid sitting on Bob Newhart's lap.
Yeah.
And again, this is forced perspective. So there's a kid sitting on a little girl. It's a little girl's legs that you are seeing. And then there's a wooden chair. And then 3 feet behind the wooden chair is Bob Newhart's head. So he looks really small and matches up with the little girl's legs.
That's perfect.
And then the next one is a shot of them on the bicycle. And again, it's a kid.
Oh, yeah.
And then there is a tiny kid behind that kid because it's kid hands.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be Bob Newhart's hands on the shoulder. And again, Bob Newhart 4 feet behind him, sticking his head out. And it's all done so, there are a few shots where you kind of can see what's going on.
Yeah.
But it's really, one thing they wanted to do, they wanted to have fires in the fireplaces, but then you're dealing with real physics, and there was no way to make one fire look bigger and one fire look smaller. That's not possible. You know, because you could tell.
Now, before we learn how to build the latest in extreme graphic chipset processors, let's recite the code of the elves, shall we?
And as the camera moves across, we see Kid Elf, Kid Elf, Kid Elf, Kid Elf, Giant Buddy.
Treat every day like Christmas.
Number 2.
There's room for everyone on the nice list.
Number 3.
The best way to spread Christmas cheer is singing loud for all to hear.
Will Ferrell's elf costume is perfect.
Oh my God. It is so perfect in that it totally fits and yet is somehow unique in its color combo with those bright yellow tights, the black boots, and the green jacket. It just so totally works. And the hat, which is perfect too as well.
So, and then it's time, he's kind of a grown-up, and his dad is saying, you know what? Come on, you're going to be my new apprentice. And they walk into a room. Again, it's, Bob Newhart walks through a big door. Will Ferrell walks through a tiny door. And we see the sleigh because Papa has been working on the sleigh. And he's had to add some technology because the sleigh works on Christmas cheer. And
As silly as it sounds, a lot of people down south don't believe in Santa Claus.
What?
Who do they think puts all the toys under the tree?
Well, there's a rumor floating around that the parents do it.
That's ridiculous.
They don't have the time.
And what about the cookies? John, what about the cookies?
Right.
I suppose parents eat them too.
And every year, less and less people believe in Santa Claus. I mean, we have a real energy crisis on our hands.
And so that's why he had to build the Kringle, 2000. It's got 5,000 reindeer power engines. That's a lot of reindeer power.
Yeah, it is.
That's a small joke that I like.
As much as Buddy was accepted by his family and friends, there were a few drawbacks to being a human in an elf's world.
And we cut to Buddy. There's a long row of elves working. He, again, is up on a little platform, and he's set forward closer to the camera to make him look big. Mm-hmm. And he's looking stressed out, building a toy. And up walks his supervisor, Ming Ming.
Yeah, Ming Ming.
Peter Billingsley.
The great Peter. You can't have a Christmas movie without Peter Billingsley, for God's sakes.
I mean, it's so funny, like, looking at his face, because you could so see that kid from Christmas Story.
Oh, yeah.
And he's also a producer, by the way. He's a producer on Iron Man. He's worked with Jon Favreau a lot.
Just how many Etch-a-Sketches did you get finished?
I made 85.
And there's shock.
Just the hesitation. It's like when you're gonna say something that people aren't gonna like, and he's just like, that's the thing. Will Ferrell's performance in this movie is incredible because he really encapsulates a human that has been stuck in a state of arrested development, as Jon Favreau says as the doctor later on in the movie, as a child. Like, he is a human being of adult age who is acting like a 10-year-old. And in that moment when he's like afraid to say how many sketches he's done, there's such shame in what he's about to say before he says it. It's great.
One of the things Favreau said, and I thought it was really interesting, something we often don't think about, is that for less well-known actors, they come in and they do an audition and they do a callback and they do a producer read and they might do a screen test and stuff like that. So you've really seen how that person is going to approach the part.
Right.
Famous actors, they don't audition.
Right.
They get an offer. They say, well, we want Will Farrell to do this movie. And Will Farrell asks for a certain amount of money or a certain kind of deal, and they make an agreement, and now he's on the set. And what Favreau was worried about, because Will Farrell's so funny, but he had never seen him play anything sincere. And he was worried that he would always be going too hard for the joke. And very soon he realized, no, Will Farrell is hitting it just, he's still really funny.
Right.
But never to violate the character,
Yeah.
It's always really sweet. And I love that he's made 85 and that puts you 950 off pace.
Why don't you just say it? I'm the worst toy maker in the world. I'm a cotton-headed ninny muggins.
And they all are very supportive.
No, buddy, you're not a cotton-headed ninny muggins. We all just have different talents, that's all.
Seems like everyone else has the same talents except for me.
You have lots of talents. Special talents, in fact. Like,
And then it's the look to the other elves, like, come on, help me out. And they come up with, he changed the batteries in the smoke detector.
When they say special, though, the look on his face, right? He knows immediately that they're lying to him or trying to make him feel better.
Here's one of the great changes that Jon Favreau made, is originally all the elves made fun of him.
Oh,
which makes perfect sense because that's Rudolph,
Right.
They called him They wouldn't let him play the reindeer games. And Favreau knew that was wrong, he went, if we do that, then it makes the North Pole not a wonderful, perfect place. And then it makes the character of Buddy kind of an idiot.
Yeah.
As opposed to, no, it really is an amazing, wonderful place. And therefore Buddy is right. Mm-hmm. He's naive, but he's correct.
Right.
I think that is, and here's the thing about Jon Favreau, and I think we've really seen it, is, I was trying to figure out how to express it. It's like, Stanley Kubrick is a genius, and he has a vision, and he is following that vision. And maybe you're going to like that vision, and maybe you're not, and maybe it's going to go in difficult or complicated directions, but that's what he's doing. Mm-hmm. Jon Favreau knows what is necessary.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. He's one of these populist filmmakers that still has artistry within the populist mainstream stuff he works on. He has made Star Wars work. He made Elf work. He built the MCU in essence with Iron Man, at least the foundation for it.
Yeah.
So he understands what he's creating. Even The Lion King, as you said, $1.6 billion is nothing to sneeze at. And so he was able to do what needed to be done for that movie. He is an artist in a certain way, but he's a mainstream artist and not just a he's not, what do you call this? He's not one of those paint by numbers type of directors. He's a director who understands what franchise he's working within and how to bring out the best of the spirit of the franchise for people to appreciate and enjoy.
Well, and you think about what a filmmaker in those realms has to do is you have to navigate super complicated stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about Star Wars fans and Disney and Lucas and all these different people that have opinions.
Yeah.
And we've seen with all the other Star Wars properties how hard that is to do. I mean, you have super talented people like JJ, you have all these people trying to make it work that don't. And Favreau is able to walk the tightrope and figure out, no, this is what everyone's going to want.
Right.
He's great. I also just love, I love the chef show because I love to cook. I love Dinner for Five. I thought that was a great show.
Yeah.
I just really and he's also one of these directors, okay, from what I can tell, is a nice guy.
Yeah.
So we go to, they find him the special work that elves can do, and it is testing the Jack-in-the-Boxes.
That's a great sequence.
And then you get the great spin, spin, spin. It doesn't pop. Oh, this one must be. By the way they did this is Favreau had a remote control. So Will Ferrell really didn't know when they were going to pop. And sometimes he would have it happen really fast, and sometimes it happened really slow. One of the things that Favreau knew right away is that Will Ferrell's so great at physical stuff is that you just create a physical situation and then let him go. And so it was always about setting up a situation where he could do things. And it's totally reminded me, have I told you the Lucille Ball Put Me on a Ladder?
Oh, no. Yeah.
So Lucille Ball, obviously one of the great comedians of all time. And whenever the writers would get in trouble, they couldn't figure out what to do for the next episode or the next scene or how to make it funny, Lucille Ball would say, put me on a ladder, which meant give me something physical to do. Give me I will find the funny if you have a conveyor belt with chocolates or you have me drink alcoholic medicine or whatever it is. Put me on a ladder. And I think Will Ferrell is the same thing.
Yeah.
Put him on a ladder. He will make it funny. Put him in a situation.
Quick thinking yesterday with that special talents thing.
I feel bad for the guy. Just hope he doesn't get wise.
And there's Will Ferrell overhearing this.
If he hasn't figured out he's a human by now, I don't think he ever will.
And then we go into he falls back and goes into this flashback of Buddy in this small world, particularly Will Ferrell in the shower. He's just so funny.
The moving of the water into, I mean, that's just so funny. But it's, what's great too is it shows you in a subconscious way or in a subtle way how this guy is determined to accomplish his tasks when he sets his mind to do them. Even something as simple as having a shower every morning and a small ass shower for a human being to be in, he's going to find a way to clean himself. And all these other things that he's doing, he's going to find a way to make it happen, and he's determined to make it happen. And when he can't do it, that's when he goes into this crisis of confidence. I also love the shot of him playing basketball and jamming the ball and dunking on all the elves. That's just genius.
And the class picture.
Yeah.
And then he runs out of the room. He runs into his house. He's knocking down doors and things, sits down on the tiny toilet. And Papa shows up, Bob Newhart, and he's sitting on his lap. And again, this is kids' feet, Bob Newhart way in the background. This felt like a Teen Wolf moment. When Michael J. Fox opens the door after he's become the Teen Wolf, and his dad's standing there fully as a wolf man, he says, "I think we need to talk." And this is what we feel. It feels like this moment here. I haven't seen Teen Wolf in so long.
Oh, it's my favorite moment of the movie.
My memory is it's a perfectly funny 80s Michael J. Fox movie.
Yes.
It's not appearing on the Cine-Files anytime soon.
No.
I then proceeded to tell Buddy of how his father had fallen in love when he was very young with a beautiful girl named Susan Wells, and how Buddy was born and put up for adoption.
I don't quite understand how they figured out the backstory, because the baby just crawled into the sack. How did they even know where this kid came from?
He's Santa, man. You know,
guess
Santa's
you're right.
got magic powers.
And they said, we even know where your dad is. And we hold up this snow globe, about New York City, and he's at the Empire State Building.
Yeah.
And of course, the snow globe that Bob Newhart is holding is huge. And when it gets handed to Buddy, it's tiny.
Yeah.
He runs outside, sees some little stop motion characters, and then runs into the stop motion snowman, which obviously is a reference to Rudolph and to all those other shows. And that is Leon Redbone.
Yeah, the great Leon Redbone. Which is so funny because Leon is like, he was on SNL in the 70s a couple of times. And, he's an unusual New Orleans, I think he's a New Orleans musician. And his style of singing is very, it's rare to cross over to a mainstream.
Well, and it's on Saturday Night Live. That's where Jon Favreau saw him. And that's why he's in this.
Yeah.
Is that and it's so funny because I remember him from Saturday Night Live in those days. He clearly made this powerful impression.
He's a unique looking guy. Yeah.
Yeah. With a really interesting voice.
Yes.
And this is where we come up with the idea that I'm going to go to New York and visit my dad.
I've been in New York thousands of times.
Really? What's it like?
First off, you see gum on the street, leave it there. It's not free candy.
My favorite line for Santa is,
There are like 30 Ray's pizzas. They all claim to be the original, but the real one's on 11th.
that is such a New York joke. And I think my understanding is the original Ray's is in fact the one on 11th. That is my understanding.
Can't wait to see my dad. We're going to go ice skating and eat sugar plums.
And Santa says, that's the other thing I wanted to talk to you about. Buddy, your father, he's on the naughty list.
Oh my God, the reaction is so perfect because it's so immediate and it's so extreme because you know what that means, right? There isn't that delayed reaction. It's immediate, and I love it. He runs out.
Yeah. Well, and the camera like zooms over to the actual book list. And then we cut to James Caan, who is he's repoing some books from a nun from some children's books.
Yeah. Because they can't pay because the monastery couldn't pay for the books. Oh, terrible.
It's just business, John.
Yeah.
This is business. Like,
I see what you're trying to make me feel bad, but I'm not going to feel bad.
Maybe all they need is just a little Christmas spirit.
I'm good at that.
I know you are.
He gives Dad a hug, which of course is Bob Newhart hugging a giant, a really huge person, and Buddy hugging a little kid.
That's great.
I love all that stuff. And I love that they chose to do it all practically. Mm-hmm. And now we head out and he says goodbye to some of the stop motion characters. And then he jumps on a ice floe and up comes the narwhal.
Goodbye, buddy. Good luck finding your dad.
And that is Jon Favreau's voice.
Yes. Yeah.
I think some of the other stop motion people are Jon Favreau too. I'm not sure which ones.
The walrus, I think, if I'm correct, is the gentleman from Pinky and the Brain, not Rob. Maurice LaMarche. I think Maurice LaMarche is one of the characters there too.
And now we go on our journey through the Candyland forest or the candy cane forest. And then, he's out in the woods. And then there's a shot of like him on a glacier, which is
awesome.
Some very cold stuntman in tights.
How did they do that? Did they actually go to an area? Like, is it Big Bear? Is it actual, like, where did they go? I would love to know.
I don't know where it is, but that is an actual glacier and a stuntman on it. They send second units. They send 4 guys out there, to go do it.
Poor guy. It's freezing.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's one of the things that apparently elves are resistant to cold, and apparently Buddy has learned to live on only 40 minutes of sleep a night and doesn't get cold. And I mean, he's pretty impressive.
He's an impressive specimen, true.
Yeah.
For a human,
For a human. And he's walking on a path through the woods. Most of this was shot in British Columbia, a lot in Vancouver. And there's a raccoon.
Hey!
What's your name? My name's Buddy.
It's a puppet that hisses and then attacks. He goes to hug him and attacks him. I love the last shot. You see the tail wave by. It's just they literally got a raccoon hat, and there's a guy off camera just waving the tail off the hat.
That's brilliant.
Then he's walking on a road, and then he's against the wall in the Lincoln Tunnel, which was really shot in the Lincoln Tunnel.
Yeah, there's no way they didn't shoot some of these scenes in New York and just let it be like whoever's around is around.
Yeah, I mean, they wanted as many of the exteriors as they possibly could be in New York.
Yeah.
Because New York's New York.
Mm-hmm.
What's interesting, they started shooting in December of 2002, which means that it's just a little more than a year after 9/11.
Wow.
And so there was a lot of, New York was, they weren't just embracing come in and film here, particularly at the Empire State Building. And they really did film at the Empire State Building, and that was a highly guarded space in 2002.
Yeah.
And the music, by the way, it's Pennies from Heaven, Louis Prima.
Yeah.
It's just perfect.
And every time it rains, pennies from heaven.
The studio, I think it's the studio, did not want Louis Prima. They wanted a modern song because they want to sell records.
Right.
And this sounds like one Jon Favreau really fought on, and he's totally, totally right. I love this whole montage.
Yep.
He sees the sign for World's Best Copy.
You did it! Congratulations! And they're all just staring at him.
Playing hopscotch on the crosswalk. Sees a guy in red and thinks it's Santa.
And that actually was an extra. Like they didn't that was
Really?
that was not a person that they had filmed or told was going to happen. He happened to be wearing all red with the beard. Maybe in a way to kind of play like he looks like Santa, and they had Will Farrell run up on him and shoot that, which was really funny.
Did the guy know that he was? Oh, that's amazing.
So the reaction you get there is authentic from that guy.
There's guys handing out flyers, and he keeps coming back and getting the flyers. And one of
Get
those
out.
guys is Adam McKay.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the guy on the right, I think, is Adam McKay.
Yeah, I think so.
One of the ones I love is the guy waving for a taxi, and he's just waving at him like, "Hi, hi." Will Farrell is so funny.
Yeah.
He's one of those people that I don't even always understand what he's doing that's funny.
Mm-hmm.
It's just he's funny. Like it's just the way his facial expression is, and part of him that makes him so funny is just 100% sincerity.
Yeah,
you know?
that's what it is. A sincerity and dedication to the part. Yeah.
He sees the Empire State Building and goes into the elevator. We're now back on a set, and the elevator has all the buttons for all the floors, which no elevator in the Empire State Building has 100 buttons. And he pushes one, it lights up, and then you just there's another. You know what's about to happen.
Yeah.
There's another guy in the elevator. I find the choice really interesting that the guy doesn't do anything.
I think he does a great job, that guy. You know why? Because he lives in New York and he knows there's crazy motherfuckers everywhere you go in New York. And so why wouldn't a guy dressed in an elf costume be in an elevator in New York hitting all the buttons? And he's like, I've learned not to engage with the crazy people because you never know if they'll kill you or whatever. So he just kind of deals with it and rolls with it. It's so perfect New York reaction.
Well, I totally agree. The other thing I find funny about it, he doesn't get off the elevator.
No, he does.
Is that it's stopping it. Even in my sense is even after Buddy gets off, he just stops on every floor.
Because he hates his job. Probably
That's
no
what
rush
I was,
to get there.
That is exactly the thought I had. It's like, well, better than going to work.
I've got my excuse.
And he shows up at the office of his dad, and there is Amy Sedaris improvising some stuff about kittens.
So great.
Oh, and of course she's in Mandalorian.
Yes, she is. Oh, great point. Yes, that's right. She is. She's great in Mandalorian too. How many kittens? I've never declawed kittens before. All right. No, I'm not going to charge you.
Apparently, every take she did a different thing.
Of course. She's a genius.
And she's all excited. She thinks it's like some sort of singing telegram kind of thing. And says it tells James Caan that, and in comes Buddy.
Dad!
Yeah. That's the first thing. The first thing he walks in, he says, "Dad." And Favreau frames the shot interestingly because it's Khan with his hand in his pocket, and he swings to his right almost immediately to look at what strange thing that just said "Dad" to him in the middle of his office. It's very interesting.
I walked all day and night to find you.
You look like you came from the North Pole.
That's exactly where I came from.
Santa must have called you.
Oh, yeah. I just got off the phone with him. Yeah, he said you were coming.
He did?
So good, man.
So, go on.
Go on with what?
Well, are you going to sing a song or something, or can I just go back to work?
And of course, this is all Will Farrell improvising songs.
So great.
I'm here with my dad, and we never met, and he wants me to sing him a song.
And it's so perfectly awkward and sincere and sad.
I found you, Daddy, and guess what? I love you, I love you, I love you!
And James Caan at first is just like, well, this is some weird thing. I don't know what this is. Yeah. And then he says,
Susan Wells had me, and she didn't tell you, and but now I'm here. It's me, Buddy.
And suddenly there's a reaction.
Yep, completely different reaction. Yep.
Yeah. And that's when he calls security.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things Favreau said that I think is also really smart is he didn't in general cast comedians, for the main characters. He wanted really grounded actors.
Yeah.
Because he didn't want people competing and trying to be funny with Will Farrell. And again, the thing he wasn't worried about the movie being funny.
Right.
He was worried about the sincerity. He was worried about the emotional content of the movie.
Right.
And so he wanted real people. And that's why James Caan is just perfect casting. It's funny, too, because we just did a James Caan movie much, much earlier in his career. Did Brian's Song.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
the character of Brian Piccolo couldn't be farther from this guy.
That's for sure.
The security guys are dragging him out. One of them, by the way, is Will Ferrell's brother.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, why don't you go back to Gimbals?
Which, of course, is a Miracle on 34th Street you reference. And there is Gimbals, which hadn't existed for 30 years when this movie was made.
Passion fruit spray?
Fruit spray? Sure.
Just running away. It's so good.
Another like physical bit is the escalator.
I feel like we all have had that moment the first time we got on an escalator. Right?
Sure.
I mean, as a kid, like the first time you're like, what? This thing moves on its own. Like, the fear of getting caught up in it or whatever.
No,
so.
Definitely. And with Jax, I mean, I remember like he would step on and then, or like put one foot on and freeze, or he would step on and step off and there are people behind us. I'm like, dude, you got to just step on. You're okay.
That's why it's such a genius moment, because it's like he's still a kid in his mind, even though he's an adult in his body. And so for him to have that scene makes so much sense.
He goes to the bathroom.
Hey, have you seen these toilets? They're ginormous.
Can you imagine if you had spent your entire life on a tiny little toilet?
I'd like to not imagine that. It's a lot of flushing, I'll tell you that.
Well, and just like, I won't go into what issues might happen, but it seems hard.
I'm just saying a lot of yellow snow on my end. But go ahead, yeah.
There would be a lot of yellow snow.
I wouldn't be going to the bathroom.
Ends up in the lingerie department and sees something for some special someone, which is Christmas-themed lingerie that'll come back. And there is Faison Love.
You're not supposed to be down here. You shop on your break. You don't get upstairs.
He is an recognized hero of this movie. I think Faison Love is so essential to make this movie work, and he's so good in it, and it's a shame sometimes how people forget how some of these comedic character actors can come into these movies and really provide good foundation for a lot of the humor to bounce off of.
This is the North Pole.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
No, it isn't.
Yes, it is.
No, it isn't.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not. Where's the snow?
Will Ferrell gives just this craziest smile, which is where he's just so funny.
Yeah.
I just like to smile. Smiling's my favorite.
Make work your favorite. That's your favorite, okay?
Okay.
Work is your new favorite.
And then Faison Love gets up and makes the announcement. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., Santa's coming.
Santa!
I know him.
And once again, Faison just kind of looks at him all like, okay, and keeps going with the announcements.
It's all the reaction shots that just
Mm-hmm.
make it, that's a lot of comedy.
Oh, yeah.
Is and it's so funny. It's like, this goes into the category of there's one crazy person in the real world, and then how the real world reacts to it. And they can't fully react the way they actually would, which is to have, just put this guy away.
Right.
It's just all those little, that's weird. And then he sees Zoe Deschanel on lighting the Christmas tree.
Jovi.
Are you enjoying the view?
Because she's in New York and she's used to men being jerks.
Yeah. Ogling her, yeah.
Why are you messing with me? Did Crumpet put you up to this?
I'm not messing with you. It's just nice to meet another human who shares my affinity for elf culture.
And she goes, please stop talking. He says, uh-oh, sounds like someone needs to sing a Christmas carol.
Best way to spread Christmas cheer is singing loud for all to hear.
Thanks, but I don't sing.
Oh, it's easy. It's just like talking, except louder and longer, and you move your voice up and down.
She corrects, I can sing, but I choose not to, especially in front of other people. And then, singing in front of other people is the same. And then he just makes up another ridiculous song.
I'm singing! I'm in a store and I'm singing!
And we hear that Gimbals is closing in 10 minutes. And somehow he manages to stay in the store after it closes. Somehow he manages to avoid security.
Yep.
And now we get the montage of him prepping for Santa's arrival.
Mm-hmm.
2, a really cool version of Nutcracker Suite by Brian Setzer.
Oh, nice, yeah.
And we see, doing stuff with Legos and light brights and Etch-a-Sketches and streamers and, cutting out things out of paper. And then we cut to the James Caan family.
I'm going to eat in the bedroom, okay? I got a bunch of stuff to go over.
What I like about the scene is 30 seconds long.
Yeah.
And you know everything you need to know about this family.
Yep, the family dynamic is laid out for you right there. Michael and the mom have a connection, strong connection. He's making fun. He makes fun of his dad because he's like, just got a lot of work to do. He's making fun of his dad, but it isn't mean spirited, right? It's more in a way of like almost kind of quietly. I want to spend time with him, and he doesn't want to spend time with me.
Well, this is one of the weird things I think about movies is James Caan is clearly a terrible person.
Yes, true.
And a terrible father. I mean, we met him taking books from nuns.
Right.
Like, he's just awful. And now it's not just that he heard this thing about this girl he dated and maybe this is his kid, which is true because the next thing we see of him, he's like looking through the yearbook and looking at the picture. But it's clear that he does this all the time.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And there's a weird thing in movies where it's like, why the hell is Mary Steenburgen with this guy? I mean, if this was his behavior, then at a certain point, she's a bad mom if she's not dealing with, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
but
guess.
It's okay because it's a movie.
Well, I also think if we all were to watch each other's relationships, we might be like, why are you still with that person? It's all perspective and subjective and what you can put up with versus what the other person can put up with. And how many people 30 years into a marriage want to go like, I guess I'll change horses midstream. It's just some people just stick around because fuck it, they're there.
No, everything you said is the truth. that is the truth.
Yeah, that's
it's the morning. All the decorations are amazing, and he hears a beautiful singing voice.
Yeah,
follows the voice into the ladies' locker room, and there is Jovi singing "Baby, It's Cold Outside."
So really, I'd better scurry. Well, maybe just a half a drink more.
Which she will do on the soundtrack. Yeah.
Yeah. And this whole singing thing wasn't in the movie. It's not in the script.
Right.
It wasn't in the original script.
They didn't know, Favreau didn't know Zoe Deschanel could sing. And so it wasn't, and then just by happenstance, I don't know how he found out, but she could sing. And so he put these things in the movie where she sings.
Well, and she has such an old school voice and style. And it's perfect for this song.
Mm-hmm.
And we have Will Farrell like sitting on the counter next to the sinks, singing the man's part in a soft voice.
I wish I knew how to break the spell.
I'll take your hand, your hair.
And it's great because it goes on a long time and you know that this is not going to end well.
Baby, it's cold outside.
She stops singing, peeks out.
Get out! Don't look at me! Get out!
And he covers his face and runs directly into the locker. Cut to Buddy is sleeping in the window of the store, and who walks by but his dad?
Yep.
And Buddy wakes up and tries to talk to him, and Dad is out of there. Now he's walking with a Christmas present that he's trying to give to his dad, and he thinks he can get past security. He cannot, but he does give them the present.
Oh, you guys are so strong. I love
we're back at the store, and people are reacting to this, to all the new decorations, which are pretty amazing.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yes.
He's built an entire Lego city. He's done the Mona Lisa on the Etch-a-Sketch. By the way, I cannot figure out an Etch-a-Sketch. Like, people who can actually draw a real thing, that is amazing to me.
It is amazing.
I'm lucky if I could draw a box. That's my skill level.
How come you were in the women's locker room this morning?
I heard you singing.
You sure it had nothing to do with the fact that I was naked in the shower?
I didn't know you were naked. Why were you here so early?
They shut my water off. What were you doing here so early?
Building this?
I think this scene is critical because she should have him arrested. You know what I mean?
Right,
like,
right.
Or at least be extremely angry.
Yeah.
But I heard you singing, and the fact that he built all this, I think she senses that that's the truth. You know?
Right, exactly. And it's perfect because it shows you that there's an innocence to this guy, a naivete to this guy. Because you're right. Honestly, him coming like that's essentially, like a violation of someone's personal space. Of course. But she senses that there's a genuineness to him in that exchange. And I think you're right. It is critical because this is where we start the process of this relationship coming together. And this is kind of a mini... she's starting to accept him for how he is. Yeah.
Well, it's like in classic romantic comedy structure, there's going to be a lot of things to overcome.
Yeah.
For the couple to succeed.
Right.
And in this is not that, because this is basically they're going to like each other.
Yeah.
And up comes Faison Love because he thinks this is a corporate plot to get him fired.
It's good. It's almost too good. Someone's gunning for my job.
If you get wind of anything, call me on my radio. Channel 3. Code word is Santa's got a brand new bag. Okay?
Faison came up with a different one every single time. A different
that's
code
hilarious.
word. Yeah.
That's hilarious. Yeah.
And then Santa shows up.
Wow. So you say.
Which, by the way, it's Artie Lang.
Oh, Artie Lang.
From Howard Stern. And that is inspired casting.
Yes.
Just cast the worst, the person who should never be Santa.
Who the heck are you?
What are you talking about? I'm Santa Claus.
No, you're not.
Again, there's lots of improv. All of Will Ferrell's little lines are improv.
You sit on a throne of lies.
You smell of, what does he smell of? Meat and cheese.
Beef and cheese.
Beef and cheese, yeah.
So there's a thing I know we talked about it when we did Anchorman. It's called Linorama. And that's what this is. Linorama is basically, there's something in the script, and they'll do what's in the script. And then with a guy like Will Ferrell, it's like, we'll do the same basic beat. You're not Santa. Say something insulting, and they'll do 15 takes of just different stuff and pick the funniest one. And then he pulls off the beard. The kids scream. Artie Lang attacks him. They crash through the Legos. He picks up like a metal pole and swinging it at him until finally Faison tackles Santa.
The way they dress Faison is so perfect. I mean, the tucked in sweater, the colors, and also the high water pants. The high water pants are just perfect. So when you see them as he jumps on top of Artie Lang to stop him from hitting Will Ferrell with the steel pole, those high waters come up on his ankles, and it's just a great like subconscious message of what this whole dude's life is, and so it's perfect.
One of the things I think is so interesting about this movie is that it goes through various tropes of other Christmas films. Because I think if you haven't seen this, there's this moment where you're like, it's Miracle on 34th Street. It's like he's at Gimbel's. He's the real elf. He's actually the real deal. And he's going to transform Faison Love. And he's going to, but it's like, no, he's going to jail. That's not what's going to happen at all. Get to James Caan opening the gift. And it's the Santa lingerie because it was for someone special.
And then Amy Sedaris walking in. Oh.
And then we cut to jail. and he's in the big holding cell. There's some dudes doing pull-ups. By the way, anytime you see a shot with that kind of thing with guys like doing pull-ups or push-ups, you have to remember we have no idea how many takes they had to do of this.
Oh yeah, you're right. Good point.
So those guys had to do pull-ups for hours.
Maybe. Yeah.
Maybe. And it's like if it's 8 or 9 pull-ups or 10 pull-ups in every take, by take 12, you've done a lot of pull-ups.
Yeah.
And there's James Caan at the cell. And they're walking out now. He's like, I knew you would come.
Just who the heck are you and what is your problem?
I'm Buddy. I'm your son.
Where'd you get this picture?
Papa Elf gave it to me.
Watch James Caan's reaction to Papa Elf gave it to me. Because it's completely blank.
This is some kind of game. What do you want, some money?
No. I just wanted to meet you, and I thought you might want to meet me.
And I love when they're exiting through the security, through the metal detector, that he reaches to take his hand and just slaps it away.
Slaps it away.
And now we get to meet Dr. Favreau.
Yeah.
By the way, Jon Favreau says that the dailies from this scene made him go on a diet.
Yeah, it's for the and when you struggle with your weight, seeing yourself on camera sure can make you make changes.
It's 100% true. My favorite line of this of all time was on Friends because they had Monica in the fat suit.
Oh yeah, fat Monica, yeah.
And they had like old home video. They were watching home video, and people are kind of reacting to seeing her on the fat suit.
Shut up! The camera adds 10 pounds.
So how many cameras are actually on you?
That's like a perfect joke to me.
It is.
Anyway, this is all one shot. He's eating cotton balls, by the way.
Yeah.
And it's all one shot. And just the timing of the jokes is so perfect in this scene.
Hey, can I listen to your necklace?
No, you can't. You just sit still.
Why is there a skeleton?
I don't know what. Walter, could you
It looks like a
please?
pirate
Could you
flag.
please have him sit
Does he
still
have
so
a
I can
name?
do this?
No, he hasn't got a name. I'm sorry,
I have a lot
Ben.
of
I'm
patience
sorry. Would you
waiting.
please sit still?
Please. He got mad at me. Yes, he did.
Once again, he really encapsulates a young child inside the man's body, and it's so believable. It's not in any way, shape. It doesn't feel like it's put on or a caricature. It feels very real. All the body, physical movements, all the emotional reaction, him turning to James Caan, being distracted by his dad, and then when he pricks him with that needle, that reaction is just so perfect.
So here's how things happen on a set. So they done several takes because it's all one shot, and for one shot, everything has to be perfect. Every timing, every piece of line, everywhere people's bodies are for camera, all has to be perfect. So they've done several takes. The DP, the director of photography, had the idea of the silent scream. Now, in general, the rules are nobody talks to the actors but director. I mean, yes, sometimes the DP might wait. Can you move your shoulder a little to the right or something like that for the shot? But in general, no one should be giving you direction. If you're acting on my set, I'm the only one who should be giving you acting direction. You don't want some, producer to walk up and give you a direction. That's very rude and it's very destructive to the set. So the DP goes to Jon Favreau and say, "Hey, I think it might be funny to do the silent scream." Favreau goes, "That's a great idea." So he doesn't give Will Farrell just the direction on the set. He pulls him aside. Why? Because they didn't tell James Caan. So if you watch James Caan, this is the take 7 or whatever, is the first time they do the silent scream. He totally breaks. He turns away from camera just to deal with that moment, and then they cut out of the scene.
That's brilliant.
Later on, he's with the little girl.
She wants a Susie Talks a Lot doll. Yeah.
Susie Talks a Lot doll.
I'll put in a good word with the big man.
Thanks. Your costume is pretty.
Oh, it's not a costume. I'm an elf. Well, technically I'm a human, but I was raised by elves.
Oh, I'm a human. Raised by humans.
She's so cute.
Yeah, and she's great. That little girl is
she's great.
And then eats the cotton ball. And her little smile at him eating the cotton balls, it's great.
So, it's a boy. But he's your son.
Apparently this scene was much longer.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
And they went, it's all exposition. All we need to know is Buddy's your son, and the doctor kind of going, I think he's in a state of shock and he's reverted to some kind of childlike dependency. He says, you just nurture him, then it'll all probably be okay and it'll all go away. So take him home to your wife and kid. I think this is terrible advice from a doctor.
Well, it's a doctor. Why are you listening to a pediatrician? No.
It's like you did a blood. This guy is clearly deranged.
Yeah.
He has severe mental problems.
Bring him around your wife. Bring him around your family.
Take him home. It'll be fine. I'm sure it'll be fine.
Oh, New York.
but that is in fact what they do.
God, Walter, this is wonderful. You have another son.
Which I think she's handling this really well.
Yes, Mary Steenburgen, yes.
He thinks he's an elf.
I'm sorry, what?
He thinks he's a Christmas elf.
Oh, come on, Walter. I'm sure he doesn't actually think he's an elf.
And they open the door, and then we see all the Christmas decorations.
And then I traveled through the 7 levels of the candy cane forest, past the sea of swirly, twirly gumdrops, and then I walked through the Lincoln Tunnel.
And then he chugs an entire 2-liter bottle of Coke, which he has there's a pipe next to him, on the right side of his face.
Yeah.
And that's where all that Coke is going.
That's incredible what he did, yeah.
Can you pass some maple syrup, please?
It's spaghetti.
He's just there's so many things where I just wrote down, so funny.
Yeah.
He's so funny.
You like sugar, huh?
Is there sugar in syrup?
Yes.
Then yes! We elves try to stick to the 4 main food groups. Candy, candy canes, candy corns, and syrup.
And then they ask, well, how long can you stay? And he's like, well, I hadn't really planned it out, but I was thinking forever.
Are you crazy? He cannot stay here.
Clearly, he has some serious issues. We can't just throw him out in the snow.
Why not? He loves the snow. He's told me 15 times.
Cut to the world's longest burp.
Yep.
By the way, that's a real burp guy. You hire the burp guy.
Whoa.
Yeah. And some guy can burp that long.
Yeah. I wonder what he charges. Jesus.
Dad? Dad? Dad?
What?
I can't go to sleep unless I get tucked in.
I love James Caan's tucking, his reluctant tucking. and the scene ends with,
I love you.
Okay.
It's the next morning, and he's made breakfast. Spaghetti with syrup. Great acting of eating the breakfast, of how you react to that.
Walter, Buddy has made us breakfast. Isn't that nice?
What's so perfect about her acting is the beat work is, be nice to him, eat the breakfast. It's very, very clear. And Buddy, again, he's like, has a whole plan, snow angels and ice skating and cookie dough, and then we'll snuggle. And he's like, well, I got to go to work.
Mm-hmm.
The end of the scene is, well, if you're going to stay here, get rid of the costume. Lose the tights as soon as possible. As soon as possible? And he drops trowel. As Mary Steenburgen walks in.
And you hear the scream echo in New York.
He immediately calls him on a cell number. This, by the way, this scene is the first scene they shot in the movie.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, funny.
And then you cut to him. And again, this is just give him a physical situation where he makes himself some food, and he's got spaghetti and Pop-Tarts and syrup and candy and hilarious. Also, Will Farrell has a bucket next to him on the set because you can't just keep eating this stuff.
Yeah.
So as horrible a person as James Caan seems to be, his boss, Michael Lerner, seems worse.
That friggin' puppy and pigeon are tanking hard hobs. My people estimate we're going to post a -8 for this quarter. A -8!
But he's also a guy who called James Caan out on his mistake of not including the pages in the book. My niece or whatever he says came up, and they were complaining because they don't know what happens. And so Caan tried to write it off or blame it on other people, and Lerner's like, no, you did this.
We need a new book for the first quarter. I'm going to be back in town on the 24th, Christmas Eve, and I want to hear your pitch then.
So now your ass is on the line on the 24th and blah, blah, blah. So interesting moment.
But what's it? So here's what Jon Favreau said that I like a lot. He said Christmas movies are about spirit winning over cynicism.
Yeah.
And I think that is like an amazingly accurate statement.
Yeah.
I never thought about that way, but it's like, you go to the Christmas Carol, that's exactly what it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's Scrooge becoming, gaining Christmas spirit over cynicism. You have Miracle on 34th Street. The whole plot is Maureen O'Hara. Is that who it is?
Yep, Maureen O'Hara.
Yeah, getting her to believe in Christmas. It's a Wonderful Life is a battle between spirit and cynicism. You know, I was like, oh, this is the key.
Yeah.
And so Michael Lerner and James Caan are the cynicism, and spirit must win out over them.
Yeah. And it's also what is Santa says that powers his sleigh. And even though you've got the whatever it is, the Kringle 3000 or whatever it is, it's still the Christmas spirit that is the thing that powers the sleigh, because without it, it doesn't work. And that's a symbolism for Christmas overall.
Michael's getting out of school. There's Buddy. He's not happy to see him. he chases after him, you know, is talking to him. Apparently, he just waited outside the school for 5 hours. I love the line.
So, good news. I saw a dog today. Have you seen a dog?
And then they get hit with snowballs.
Well, just after Michael tells him to get away from him, Michael tells him, leave me alone. And then boom, there he's hit by a snowball, and they're hit by snowballs. And then all of a sudden it's every man for himself in that moment.
And they run for cover, and you saw 5 or 6 kids throwing snowballs at them, but when they run for cover, it's hundreds of snowballs. This is like World War II going on.
You know what? If we can take them, okay, just start making as many snowballs as you can.
And the camera pans with Michael as he puts together one snowball, pans back to Buddy, who now has 100 snowballs made. And then he has snowball superpowers.
Yeah.
Which is one of the few actual CGI effects is his arm.
Oh, of course. I hope so.
Yeah. And what they were thinking, by the way, is the Magnificent Seven. The music is sort of Magnificent Seven-ish. And the last one of the kid that got away, and he does that throw, they're referencing the James Coburn, you know, I was aiming for the horse moment of Magnificent Seven.
That's awesome.
And then Michael is won over. That's it. You know, he hated this guy, and now when he sees what a great snowball fighter he is, they're in, and we run into playing through gimbals. I love jumping on the beds.
Yeah, the jumping on the beds is cool.
I still would do that. That looks like total fun to me. I mean, I totally would have done it as a kid, but I'd still do it now.
I don't know. I'd be afraid I'd break an ankle jumping off.
Fair. Or I'd be afraid I'd break the bed.
Yeah.
And Buddy says, I wish Dad was here because he's the greatest dad in the world. And Michael says, he's the worst dad in the world. All he does is work.
Working's fun.
Not the way he does it. All he cares about is money. He doesn't care about you or me or anybody.
Man, that's bad.
It's a heavy load, man. Yeah.
It's a good thing in Christmas movies we can overcome these things very quickly, because otherwise, in a more serious movie, this is a family in deep trouble. And then we see Jovi, who he's staring at, and he says,
Why don't you ask her out?
Out?
You don't want a date? To eat food?
Food?
Yes, real food, not candy.
And he introduces Jovi to the brother.
So what are you doing here? Did Gimbals give you your job back?
No. But things worked out pretty good. They gave me a restraining order.
We see that Faison Love is Santa.
Yeah.
And
giving him a look. He gives him a look as soon as he sees him.
Well, and he doesn't even really have the beard on.
No. It's because they throw it away. I think he ripped it off of you.
And you know, Buddy's sincerity is clearly persuasive.
I really wanted to see you, and I think you're beautiful, and I feel really warm when I am around you, and my tongue swells up.
And Zoe is so cute because she kind of like puts the finger to her mouth and kind of, you know, juts her body to the left a little bit, kind of contemplating what he said, because it's probably one of the most unusually authentic ways someone has expressed interest in her in New York, of all places.
Yeah, and I think, you know, he's sincere.
Yeah,
like
it wins her over.
Yeah.
I just had my lunch break.
Oh, okay. I understand.
But I'm free on Thursday.
And I love that the kid just like gets him out.
Yeah,
before he can mess it up.
As a good wingman should. A good wingman should. Get him out as soon as you accomplish the goal. Get out.
They're putting up a Christmas tree, which apparently they chopped down in the park.
Which I think is a Christmas Vacation reference.
Sure, could be.
Yeah.
And well, it's certainly too big. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're making such a big deal about. They were just having a little fun.
Oh, fun. So felonies are fun now. I thought, felonies were felonies.
And then this is the key line.
Okay, the tree thing was bad. I'll get him to plan another one. But at least Michael is happy for once.
What's that supposed to mean?
Well, I don't think it's any secret, Walter, that you haven't exactly been there for him.
That is heavy. Again, we're only throwing, there's like 3 or 4 of these lines, but they're big lines. And then we back with Michael and Buddy. How we get the star on top? Because I got it off camera, switch to a stuntman who runs, leaps on the tree, and it falls down on him.
Well, I tell you what, I have an idea then. Why don't you take Buddy to work with you?
He's your son, Walter.
Cut to, we're back at work, and Buddy's now in a suit.
Yeah. Camel hair coat, overcoat.
I mean, you can get a lot of stuff in New York, but getting that suit for the next morning.
It's pretty good.
It fits him very nice. He looks nice.
He does look nice.
And I love him just sort of imitating whatever his dad does.
Morning, Jack. Morning, Jack.
As a child would, right? As a child would, yeah.
And then we're in the office. He's sitting on this pig chair. This scene was originally cut from the movie. All the stuff with the coffee and sitting on the chair and reading Pygmalion and saying the word Francisco. And the studio, because this, particularly with comedies, the studio is always pressuring you, make it shorter, make it shorter. They want the movie to be an hour and a half because you get an extra screening in the theaters in a day.
That makes sense.
So they cut this scene out, and then they just felt it's really key to the characters because this is the first moment where Dad makes a joke and cares a little bit. He's still bothered by him, but it advances there, and so they put it back in. Originally, I think he just immediately sent him to the mailroom.
Right.
Which he does at the end of the scene, and we go to the mailroom, which he said was like Santa's workshop. It's not like Santa's workshop, John.
Not at all. Santa's sweatshop is what it looks like.
Yeah. And now we are back with the boss, and we have his 2 top guys pitching story ideas. Andy Richter and Kyle Gass.
Yep. I wonder if they wanted to get Jack Black as a Tenacious D thing, and maybe they didn't end up doing that. I wonder about that.
What's funny is that we have a friend connection. I met Kyle right around this time.
Cool.
It had to be like 2002 or 2003, I think.
Right.
Morris and I have been brainstorming, and we've come up with what I think is a pretty big idea.
Great, what?
You're going to love it. It's fantastic.
What?
We bring in Miles Finch.
Miles Finch.
Sold more books than Dr. Seuss.
My 2 top writers, my crack team, my fun squad. You came in here pitching me the idea of hiring another writer.
Yeah.
I like it. We're back in the mailroom, and he finds the sucky tubes for the canisters. Again, Will Farrell's really funny. And the guy next to him.
So how'd you get here?
Work release.
Apparently, he auditioned for another part. That he didn't get, or I actually think that part got cut out of the movie, out of the script.
Gotcha.
But then Favreau remembered him and just thought he was really, really funny and brought him back. And he's got syrup for his coffee too, in a little flask. Cut to the 2 of them lying down, going,
You know I sound like a broken record, but we are buddies.
You're my best friend. That's it.
And I love it. The guy says those things that everybody says in the mailroom. I got big ideas, man. I got big plans. This isn't where I'm going to end up. If they would just give me an opportunity, I bet I could wow them. The whole things you hear in the mailroom, which is really funny.
And I love that he says, I'm 26 and I got nothing to show for it. That guy's clearly not 26.
No, in any way, shape, or form.
And then he gets to have this is what's so great is, I mean, he tickle fights with the guy.
Yeah.
Is that the group of people that just embrace who Buddy is.
Yeah.
And don't go this yet. Tickle fights are fun.
He's got that Christmas spirit that brings the child, the inner child out of people, except for James Caan.
Mr. Finch, Eugene Dupree here. It's a thrill just to be talking to you on our speakerphone.
Miles, so what do you think? Can you fly in tomorrow?
And it is a voice that is now pretty darn recognizable.
Yeah, true.
Because it's Peter Dinklage.
I'll give you 5 hours tomorrow, not a minute more.
And he has all sorts of requirements of exactly what he needs to fly in. He's this kind of car and all this stuff. And cut to Buddy dancing in the mailroom and everyone cheering. He's doing the Russian dancing thing. I kind of would like to be attached to a wire so I could do all those Russian dance moves. It's time for a date. It's a great montage.
Yeah.
She's We've got You Make Me Feel So Young, Frank Sinatra. We got her blindfolded, drinking the world's greatest cup of coffee. Tastes like a crappy cup of coffee. It is a crappy cup of coffee.
It is a crappy cup of coffee, yeah.
Him playing in the revolving door, showing her Christmas tree, shows her a really big Christmas tree, and you so know what's going to happen.
Right.
She's like, come with me. And there's Rockefeller Center, which is funny because it's like, well, this is actually where Will Farrell worked for years.
Yeah.
So he's right outside his office.
30 Rock. What's great in this moment, too, when Will sees the tree, I think this is very interesting, Steve, because it could be a blink if you miss it moment. It's the first time that she has got through to him and in a way that like he senses that she understands him. And just the look on his face when he sees the tree of awe, and he doesn't even overreact or make a big, he's just kind of in awe of this because finally there's this one place, there's this one thing in this town that reminds him of home.
I think that's so right. And you know what you made me think of is that the Will Ferrell character is the person raised in the land of Santa Claus.
Yeah.
Where everyone is a believer and that is all true. And then he goes to the world where people don't believe.
Right. And he's been told they don't believe. Yeah.
Right. Jovi, what it just clicked really for me is a person who is a believer inside.
Right.
But has had to turn that off because of the world that she lives in. And so now she's finally getting to be herself. Because this guy is allowing that part of herself that she's pushed down, the parts that said enjoying the view when we first met her, to be like embracing it. And then I can't tell you how much I love the moment of he kisses her on the cheek and apologizes. And she says, you missed.
Yep. It's very sweet.
That's great. And then kisses him. And we're back at the office and here comes Miles Finch. And we see feet go by, but we can't see him because he's small. And then there is Peter Dinklage. And you know what I noticed looking at this time? You know what his costume is? To me, I'm assuming they're consciously referencing Gordon Gekko. Because he's got the white collar and the blue. It's totally a Gordon Gekko suit.
Great point.
And who he is this extremely cynical. He's like the cynical genius short story or children's story person.
All right. What have you guys got so far?
And again, these are all improvs from Kyle Gass. And it's like a tomato in tough times.
No tomatoes. Too vulnerable. Kids, they're already vulnerable.
And they have an asparagus that pee smells. And then he says, look,
I've got about 5 or 6 great starts here. I got one idea that I'm especially psyched out of my mind about. You know, it's one of those ideas where you're just like, yes!
And they all react. And he's about to start and say what it is. It starts with the cover. Picture this. And in walks Buddy.
I'm in love, and I don't care who knows it.
And this scene is so painful.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know you had elves working here.
Boy, you're hilarious, my friend.
I love how Peter Dinklage plays this, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
He's great. He's really great in this scene. And it's so funny because every single thing Buddy says is exactly a horrible, horrible insult.
Oh, yeah.
That I'm sure Peter Dinklage has lived through these insults in his life, you know?
Right. And so committing to be part of this scene as an actor, and Dinklage wasn't somebody they just found on the street. Dinklage had some credits and resume coming into this part. They turned it around to have him be this guy who was like legitimately successful. He's, he talks about how many women he's had and all this stuff, all the standard male heterosexual ideas of what success means, right? Money, women, attractiveness, and the ability to physically fight. So it's just the standard stuff. So you could, in some prism, see him as a toxic male guy, but the fact that he's, a diminutive person, it kind of works in his favor to have these things to show off his success. And he's probably had to establish yet another person, Steve, just like we said with Jovi, someone who's had to put on this front in order to succeed in a tough world, who would normally be made fun of by people. He's turned it around and become successful, so he can't be made fun of anymore. So when Will Farrell does it here, unknowingly, it turns on his anger mechanism.
I think one of the things that's really good about this movie is there really are no small characters.
Yeah.
Everyone who shows up really, Faison Love, he is trying to keep his job at that store, and he's trying to deal with all the things that he's trying to deal with.
Yep.
Like this character, you clearly have a sense of who this guy is.
Yeah.
That he had to fight for his position, and he's established some real alpha stuff in order to not get messed with, and now he feels like he's getting messed with.
So I suggest you wipe that stupid smile off your face before I come over there and smack it off.
And we get to call me elf one more time.
He's an angry elf.
Jumps up on the table, charges him. He does the full Captain Kirk 2-foot kick into the chest. Wrestles him, clearly had some martial arts training, flips him onto the desk.
Call me elf.
You're an elf.
Tosses him off the table. And then he charges out, and Will Ferrell's line,
He must be a South Pole elf.
and now James Caan loses it on him.
I don't care that you're an elf. I don't care that you're nuts. I don't care that you're my son. Get out of my life now.
And if you watch, as soon as he reacts that way, everybody in the conference room is ashamed of what Caan has said. Like, you see his reaction, maybe because they like Buddy, maybe not, but seeing your boss talk that way to his own son in such a dismissive manner, it really, you can see they're just ashamed to be near him. Yeah.
Just tell me how the pitch went.
I'm going to be a little later than I thought, okay?
Well, don't be too late, Walter. It's Christmas Eve.
Again, we're right into Scrooge and, all that stuff. And now our guys come in and they found Miles Finch's notebook.
Yeah.
And is there any moment of considering giving back this guy's intellectual property?
Not even a second.
Yep, not a second. We're going to steal it. Buddy writes a note on the Etch-a-Sketch.
I'm sorry I ruined your lives and crammed 11 cookies into the VCR. I don't belong here. I don't belong anywhere. I'll never forget you. Love, Buddy.
He's out walking in the snow. Michael comes home, finds the Etch-a-Sketch, and now we're at the board meeting.
Yeah.
And what's so funny is James Caan starts to pitch it, and he says, let's start with the cover, which is exactly what Miles Finch said. I'm going to start with the cover. That's when Buddy comes in and interrupts him. And now Michael, the son, comes in and interrupts this. We never get past, let's start with the cover on this pitch.
True. It's a great point. I never caught that.
Buddy ran away.
What?
I'm scared, Dad. He's gone.
Oh, let me just finish this meeting and then we'll figure it out, okay?
Figure out what? Buddy cares about everybody. All you care about is yourself.
And he takes it in, and then he says,
we're going to have to reschedule this.
And Michael Lerner's like, we can't reschedule. I want to hear the damn thing now. And then he says, son, you have to wait.
Oof.
Don't tell my kid what to do.
That's James Caan reverting. Like, James Caan became Street New York in that moment because he was going to take Michael Lerner and go flip him around like Dinklage flipped around Will Farrell in that moment. He says, don't talk to my son that way. Like, it's basically, you got one more chance here and then it's all over.
Because Sonny Corleone is in there.
I know, he's always in there. Son.
He's always there. Well, this is one of the things, I know we talked about his performance in Misery. And in a weird way, I think this is a similar performance, an entirely different movie. But it's all restrained. Everything is totally restrained. And there's all this stuff behind it that you can see.
If you want to keep your job, Hobbs, you will pitch me this book right now.
And there's a pause. And then we get...
Up yours.
And I love that Michael repeats it. Yeah, up yours.
And he says, hey. And then they do a little fist bump. It's pretty cool.
And Buddy is on the bridge. And again, they're consciously in It's a Wonderful Life now.
Yeah.
And then we hear Santa.
Come on!
Santa?
And out of the clouds comes the sled, and there are flames coming out of the back of the sleigh, and it goes down in Central Park. Michael sees it and is running that direction. Buddy is running through the trees. He finds the sleigh and the reindeer. And I love Santa has the tire iron.
I love that. It's a Santa who understands New York.
Yeah, totally understands New York. He says, back off, Slick. And then realizes it's Buddy.
The clausometer suddenly just dropped down to 0. There's just no Christmas spirit anymore. I need an elf's help.
I'm not an elf, Santa. I can't do anything right.
Buddy, you're more of an elf than anyone I ever met. And the only one who I would want working on my sleigh tonight.
Can I tell you what I think about this moment? What I'm going to say is not true, but I'm going to say it anyway. I think Santa's totally manipulating Buddy in this moment. He doesn't think he's more than an elf. He's just he needs Buddy to fix the damn thing.
Hey.
And he's telling him what he needs to tell him to get the thing fixed.
Santa's a smart man. He's a businessman. He's running a business.
It's business.
I'm standing here outside Central Park where it is unclear exactly what has happened. What we do know is that authorities have closed the park and are in the process of clearing it. The only thing that people can seem to agree on here is that they saw something fall from the sky.
Even her character has a full character because it's clearly her first night. She's like an out-of-town news person, and this is her first night on the bigs.
Charlotte.
And you could hear the anchorman's kind of giving her some crap. You know,
No, it's such an unusual thing to throw in this moment because Charlotte, and he's like, well, you know, I know you're not used to covering big news stories like we do here in New York. Like all of it is just this great dig at her, and she's rolling with it as best she can, which is very funny.
Michael and Dad find the engine. They find Buddy.
Eddie, there's something I have to tell you right now. I didn't mean anything I said back there, not a word. I don't want you to leave. You're my son, and I love you.
It's such a sweet moment. I get emotional every time when I watch it now that I'm older, that scene. Because Khan is, is like you said, he's not the nicest guy in the film, but there's real apology in that moment. There's a real sincere understanding that he went too far and that he took it out on the wrong person. His frustration. Yeah.
Totally. I think in a different kind of movie, you would have to earn this movie moment more.
Oh, right.
But that's not, this is this movie, you know?
Right.
Like the moment that Michael Lerner tells his kid what to do and Michael says what he says in the boardroom, the switch has flipped.
Yeah. He's now sympathetic figure.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I love that the hug with lots of pats and they all go on too long.
Come with me.
Right. And there's Santa.
I'm here with another eyewitness who has his own version of what happened. Sir, what did you see?
I think you're great, Charlotte.
And talking about characters that are full characters, we have this guy come up who's another eyewitness, and he is
he's like Matt. He's like hitting on her, and that's Matt Walsh.
I saw something fall from the sky right in the middle of Central Park. I mean, you're a great news lady.
Thank you.
Oh, that's who that is.
Yeah.
And it just adds a small little bit to this movie, and we hear that the Central Park Rangers are going to clear the park, and these are some highly trained. And I love the line.
And their controversial crowd control tactics at the Simon and Garfunkel concert in '85 are still under investigation.
Which, by the way, the Simon and Garfunkel concert in Central Park is actually in '81.
Oh yeah, but it's also one of the most chill concerts you'll ever go. I have the CD, and I bought the video, or I purchased the DVD of it. It's one of the most relaxing concerts you'll ever attend.
I listened to that album so many times.
Oh yeah,
in the '80s. I mean, and it's a fantastic live album.
Yep, it is.
So you're really Santa Claus?
Tell me, Michael, what do you want for Christmas?
I wanted a skateboard.
Oh, not just a skateboard.
Then he shows him the book, the list, the nice list, and there is his name with the skateboard. And then he says, "Go look over there," and there is in fact the skateboard.
Yeah.
And what happens in that moment? Sleigh goes up.
Yep.
What happened?
You made my sleigh fly.
Christmas spirit. Yeah.
Christmas spirit. And Michael's got the solution. Let's get some news guys here, and we'll film you, and then the whole world will have Christmas spirit.
Christmas spirit is about believing, not seeing.
Right. What does that sound familiar like?
It's faith.
Yeah, faith. Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. We did Miracle on 34th Street years ago.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that movie's about. It's all about faith.
All about faith. Yep.
And I love the cuts to the Central Park Rangers. You want to know what Favreau's inspiration for how he filmed these guys?
What?
The ring wraiths in Lord of the Rings.
That makes so much sense.
Totally does.
I also think this is maybe remnants of the darker script. This is what I thought, that having discovered that that there was a darker version, that maybe this is something that made it through all the cuts, because it is so random in the movie to have this be something that you're worried about or have to even have a concern about in the film, because there's been no buildup to these Central Park Rangers, yet they appear out of the blue. They're like fame, death, and pestilence and all of that. So yeah, it makes sense.
Well, I don't know if they were in the original script, but what I do know is that the big climax was a huge gunfight down like Fifth Avenue.
What?
That was the climax of the original script.
Gunfight?
A gunfight.
With Santa?
Yeah. I mean, I haven't read it. I think that's what Favreau said.
I'd love to see a gunfight with Santa. I think they just did it with Mel Gibson. It's called Fat Man. It just came out.
Michael has a plan, and he grabs the list, and Santa's like, hey, my list, and goes to the reporter and says,
It's him. It's the real Santa. His sleigh won't fly because nobody believes in him.
Did you see something in the park?
Everyone out there, Santa needs us to believe I can prove he's real. Look, this is his list.
and he reads names of kids and what they're going to get. And we cut to all those kids who are watching the news on Christmas Eve, and they're all cheering. And of course, then we cut to a biker bar, and we see the guy's name, and then he wants a spa day at Burke Williams.
Must be another Dirk Lawson.
Yeah.
Confirmation that Santa must have been sighted because we have his book right here.
What's your name?
I'm Charlotte Denon, New York 1.
Charlotte Denon wants a Tiffany engagement ring and for her boyfriend to stop dragging his feet and commit already.
And the crowd was like, oh.
And she cuts it like...
She doesn't believe. She doesn't believe, right.
Hey, Michael, are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. But, buddy, he's in the park with Santa. The sleigh won't fly because there's no Christmas spirit.
And then here comes Mary Steenburgen. She shows up, and Jovi's alone, and she goes...
The best way to spread Christmas cheer is singing loud for all to hear.
And again, this moment wouldn't be happening like this if Jon Favreau doesn't find out that Zooey Deschanel sings.
Right. Good point.
You know, like all of this coming together, you know, it's all sort of happy accidents that a good director knows how to take advantage of. To go like, oh, I see a thing here that I can use.
Right. Also, you love the fact that Jovi doesn't question that Santa's alive and Santa's real. Like, she never questions it. Though when Michael tells her, she's like, you know what? I met this buddy. He's an elf. Anything's possible now. So,
I mean, I think it all goes back to, why were you in the ladies' locker room?
Right.
I heard your singing.
Yeah.
And that was the truth.
Yep.
And from that being the truth, she believes it all.
Buddy, you gotta get going. Get in now. Santa, I'm not done with the engine yet.
Buddy jumps on the back of the sled and then flips into the sled. Jovi steps on a carriage and starts nervously singing Santa Claus is Coming to Town, and people start turning.
You better watch out. You better not cry. You better not pout. I'm telling you why.
We get a little bit more power. More people are joining in. Mary Steenburgen joins in awkwardly.
He sees you when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake.
This is a pickup. When they shot it originally in the New York scene.
Yeah.
And it was, the beat work of it was just her character happily joins singing. And Jon Favreau realized that it wasn't doing the right thing transitionally. Mm-hmm. And so he reshot it with different beat work, which is, gave her the direction of that you don't want to sing. It's awkward. You realize that you need to sing, even though your voice isn't that great, but you overcome that. And then it feels good when people join in.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes the moment work. And he just shot it in Vancouver, just in the back where they were shooting, because there's almost no background behind her. Mm-hmm. And that is a perfect little pickup. Those are the kinds of strange little things that you go like, no, I need this moment to move the scene forward.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep. Michael joins in singing. The crowd starts going and singing. The meter is going up on Santa's sleigh. There's sparks from the engine, and they're coming towards a famous spot in New York. It's Bethesda Fountain. And he hits the start button. They blast off because the engine's working, and they hit the statue, and the engine gets knocked off. I love Santa's line. We're toast. They crash by a homeless guy who has a beatbox around his neck.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know who this was. Did you?
No. Who is it?
He is I mean, I'm sure you've been around where there's a certain famous sort of character in your neighborhood.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So this is Radio Man, who was very famous in New York. A lot of people say that this is who the Fisher King is based on.
Oh, interesting.
He's in an episode of 30 Rock. He's in Departed. He's in Shutter Island. He's in episodes of It's Always Sunny. He's in Godzilla, Ransom, Big Daddy, Mr. Deeds, and Little Nicky.
Good God.
Whoopi Goldberg took him as her date to the Oscars.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So I didn't know who that is, but I mean, apparently, if you were a New Yorker in this era, you knew who Radio Man was.
He knows if you're awake.
He knows if you've been fed.
Now they're broadcasting this song over the news, and we have kids singing. This is classic fun movie stuff. The mailroom is singing. The security guys we met before singing. The office people are singing. The people at Gimbals are singing. The people in the biker bar are singing.
Just a little more!
But it's still not quite enough. And then we cut to our family, and Michael looks up at James Caan, who is lip syncing, but not singing.
Please, what's the big deal?
Dad?
Jon Favreau calls this the Horton Hears a Who moment. It's one more voice. One more little voice is all you need.
Santa Claus is coming to town.
And suddenly the sled meter the clausometer, whatever it is, goes high, and the sled comes roaring over them. By the way, incredible reaction from James Caan.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And everyone, and shots of the reporter, a baby sees it. That baby is always going to have the Christmas spirit, John, their whole life. They won't know why, but they will always have the Christmas spirit.
Well, I guess we'll never know for sure what happened this Christmas Eve in Central Park.
Merry Christmas!
By the way, it's come up before, I've talked about this idea of the difference between story and plot, and that plot is sort of the mechanism of the conflicts that are happening. And story is more about the characters and their evolution and interpersonal conflict and things like that. And one of the things that's in the book that someday I'm going to finish writing is really well-made movies have the story character climax coincide exactly with the plot climax. This is a perfect example. The story character climax is James Caan singing. And the plot is, can we get the sleigh to fly? Can we get Santa's sleigh to fly? It is James Caan singing. His evolution as a character is what solves the problem of the plot. That is really tight screenwriting.
And so, with a little help, Buddy managed to save Christmas. And his spirit saved a lot of other people, too.
And then we hear James Caan is playing piano for Jovi, who's singing a Christmas song. Again, this is just something Jon Favreau, he didn't know that James Caan, that wasn't in the script. He just found out James Caan could play piano somehow while they're shooting, and that's what created this moment. We hear that James Caan formed his own publishing house, and their first book was this story about an elf.
First, I traveled through the 7 levels of the candy cane forest, past the sea of twirly, swirly gumdrops. Then, I walked through the Lincoln Tunnel.
And as for me, I can't complain. Buddy comes up to visit from time to time.
In the meadow, we can build a snowman.
There's Jovi in a pink red elf outfit, pours some milk. Again, this is forced perspective, so that where she pours the milk is like 10 feet closer to the camera than where Bob Newhart is actually sitting. We see they have a baby, and Bob Newhart goes, "Come here, little one," wants the baby, and Buddy comes and sits on his lap. And there's a great sound effect when he sits on him.
Buddy!
And we have Ray Charles' Winter Wonderland, and the page closes, and this is the end of Elf.
Yeah. Great stuff.
Yeah. It really does just such a perfect job of balancing the broad comedy with the sweet, sincere stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just a couple of quick things about Post. Jon Favreau had an expression I'd never heard that I like, which is shooting the movie as you shop for groceries, post-production is cooking the meal. I like that. I like that quite a lot. And then there's in some of the behind the scenes footage, there's a little piece where they're talking about editing a moment. It's just a really good explanation. They're talking about the scene where he comes in and sings to his dad for the Christmas gram.
Yeah.
And how they use different takes. You know, like this part of take 1 worked and this part of take 2 worked. And then they had to get a reaction shot so they have a cutaway so they could blend things together, and just kind of explaining this strange puzzle of trying to get all the stuff you want to get out of editing. It was really interesting. It made, for a $32 million movie, it made $229 million at the box office.
Wow.
It was very well reviewed. The soundtrack was a hit. They did an animated special based on it. There was an Elf musical, which I didn't know. There was an Elf video game. There have been many, many rumors of a sequel. Favreau continually says, yeah, it could happen. Will Farrell continually says, that's not going to happen. And I heard that James Caan said Will and John didn't really get along very well.
That's what he said, and I don't know if anyone's ever backed it up, but that's what he says, you know.
Yeah.
I don't think Favreau was at the reading either, so I don't know if that's true.
Oh, really? Oh,
the
that's
recent reading. I don't know, so don't quote me on it.
I don't think there should be a sequel.
It's perfect as it is.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. There was a Christmas Story sequel, and that sucked. So
I mean,
it's like
seeing a elf that's 20 years older.
Right.
You know, I don't know that that's what I want to.
Because you have to go down the route that he becomes James Caan, right? He becomes cynical about Christmas, and it takes his son reminding him of what it was like to believe in Christmas again.
Yeah. Oh,
that's logically where you go.
You just wrote it. They should hire you.
Yeah, right. You guys can fill in the lines and stuff. I'll just take credit for having come up with it.
John, what are your final thoughts on this Christmas classic?
I love this movie so much. I mean, talking about it with you is reliving it all over again. I was almost in two places, being your co-host on this show and also being a fan listening to us talk about it, because I enjoy the movie so much, and reliving the movie as so many of our fans do when they listen to, or listeners rather do, when they listen to our shows or episodes. So I just saw the movie all over again, and it was so much fun, and I love it to pieces. I love Will Farrell in it. And look, I'm one of those guys that was James Caan for a long time about Christmas in my 20s and in my early 30s. And I met my own buddy, the elf, and Michael Vogel, and he kind of changed me around about Christmas in the late 90s into the 2000s and beyond. And now it's one of the seasons I look forward to the most. We could lose so many other holidays, but Christmas is the one that I would defend to my dying breath, because it reminds us of the possibilities that we might still have as a species and as a people, the possibility of joy, the possibility of coming together to help each other, the possibility of helping your fellow man, the possibility of unifying, and it's all around the Christmas spirit. And this film really brings that out, the idea of the power of the Christmas spirit and how it can affect people and help people and bring people back together, and put smiles back on faces and help people believe in the possibility of something more magical or something incredible that can happen in the world. And it's all through this guy in yellow tights and a green coat. You know, it's just incredible. So, and I love the honesty and the purity of this movie more than anything else. It isn't trying to make some grandiose statement. It's just exactly what it is. And it's so earnest and believable and honest in its approach that it's irresistible in its charm in that way.
That's great. I just sort of two thoughts about this. The first is, this year, 2003, between this and Old School, this is the arrival of this person who would be the dominant comedian for 5 or 6 years. You know, like, and I think, and it's so interesting that you have these people, you know, whether it's Eddie Murphy at a certain area, Chevy Chase at a certain area, Adam Sandler at a certain time, that just come in and they dominate for a certain amount of time, and then the next one comes. Yeah.
Jim Carrey.
Jim Carrey, exactly. Is that I think at this moment there is no funnier person in movies than Will Ferrell. I just and watching every little thing he does in this movie cracks me up. So that the first thing is, this arrival of the star. And the second thing I would say is, I go back to Jon Favreau saying that Christmas movies are about spirit overcoming cynicism. And I think he did this is such a good example of that, because it's really, really funny, but it never loses that spirit, that warmth, and just says, yes, this is true. Believe in it. Just like Miracle on 34th Street does, just like A Christmas Carol does, just like It's a Wonderful Life does. Like, all these movies make you go, believe in this Christmas spirit. Our families will be happier. All of us will be happier. And even though, as you know, I'm an atheist, like the religious aspect of Christmas, I don't believe in. I love Christmas too. I really do. So, I think that's it for this week. As always, you can visit us on our Facebook page, do a search for the Cine-Files. Please subscribe to the show and wherever you get your podcasts, whether it's iTunes or YouTube or Spotify. If you listen to it on iTunes, please leave us a review. If you want to buy Elf or any other movie we've ever reviewed or stream it through Amazon Prime, you can do so through cinephiles.net. You can support the show on patreon.com/the Cine-Files. You can follow the show on Twitter at Cine_Files. You can follow it on Instagram at the Cine-Files Podcast. I'm at SR Morris on Twitter and SR Morris1 on Instagram. John, how about you?
You can always follow me at The Roca Says on Twitter and on Instagram. And you please come on by to my YouTube channel as well, youtube.com/John Roca Says. See all the great content we got going on there. And I just want to say, I know this is the Christmas season, and as joyful as this movie is, for some people, the Christmas season is a tough time. So just want to tell you, I've been there. I know what that experience is like. Please don't hesitate to reach out. Please don't hesitate to call. If you get to a really desperate place in your life, call a prevention hotline. Call those hotlines that help you. They will be able to walk you back out of it, or reach out to a friend or family member who can walk you out of the tough times. So just wanted to say that, put that out there. Know that me and Steve are always respectful of people who find these seasons to be difficult as well. As much as we want to celebrate it by talking about this movie, we also want to support our fans who may not enjoy this season as much as others for personal reasons.
I'm so glad you said that, John. And it made me think, I mean, we're recording this is 2020. It's been a tough year.
Yes.
And this is going to be a holiday season that's going to be very different and maybe a lot harder for us. And so, whether it's over a phone call or Zoom or whatever way, reach out to the people you care about, because in the end, it's caring about other people that this season is all about. And, we really appreciate all the care that the Cine-Files has shown us. And we wish all of you a very happy holiday and a really happy 2021, because we could use it.